What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with the mid-season update for Season 3 of Warzone, the Swiss K31 got several buffs, and then sniper rifles across the board had their attachments buffed as well. And therefore, I've had a lot of people asking me, is the Swiss K31 now the best aggressive sniper rifle? I'm not talking about sniper rifles that are designed to be picking people off at really long ranges. I'm talking sniper rifles like the Kar98, for instance, that you would use aggressively, and you probably aren't going to be challenging too many snipes beyond, let's just say, like 150 meters. But with the Swiss K31 in this most recent update, they greatly improved its flinch resistance, they improved its aim down sight speed a little bit, and they also improved its aiming stability. To top this off, one of the big additions to Cold War sniper rifles with this update is the SWAT 5mm laser. This got adjusted so it now behaves more like attack laser with the Modern Warfare sniper rifles. So this increases your aiming stability and it greatly increases your aim down sight speed. When you combine all of these changes, it really seems like the Swiss K31 is now a solid contender for the Kar98, but let's dive into the numbers and see if this is actually better than the Kar98 now for aggressive sniping. And diving right into the comparison, let's have a look at our damage profiles. When it comes to our base damage, so damage to the limbs, the Swiss K31 deals 83 damage, whereas the Kar98 deals 86, so essentially about the same here. Really not much of a noticeable difference. However, the Swiss K31 gets a solid lower torso damage multiplier, and our lower torso damage is over 100, whereas the Kar98 is still stuck at 86. And then when we get to the upper torso damage, we deal 180 damage per shot with the Swiss K31, which is noticeably better than with the Kar98 at 154 damage, but in both of these cases, if the enemy has full health and just one armor plate equipped, you will be able to get a one-shot kill to the upper torso. As for headshots, just like with all of these snipers and bolt-action marksman rifles, we deal exactly 250 damage to the head, meaning it is a one-shot kill against a full health and full armored enemy as long as you aren't shooting through anything. So far, the Swiss K31 technically has an advantage over the Kar98, but this isn't even factoring ranges in. What I found with the Swiss K31 is there doesn't appear to be a damage drop-off at all. I tested out to about 250 meters, and there was no damage drop-off at that point, so I'm assuming it's infinite. Whereas with the Kar98, when you've got it stacked with the attachments that you should be using, so monolithic suppressor and the longest barrel, our body shot damage drops off very considerably after 93 meters. You still maintain that one-shot headshot potential at any range, but if you're landing shots anywhere but the head, you're going to be dealing significantly less damage at range with the Kar98. But moving on to the next part of our comparison, let's have a look at our rates of fire. With the Swiss K31, our rate of fire with the setup that I'm going to be sharing with you guys in a little bit is 50 rounds per minute, whereas with the Kar98, it's 43 rounds per minute. So again, Swiss K31 has the advantage here. You can get that follow-up shot off a little bit faster if you miss or you get a hit marker. Then taking a look at our base bullet velocity, the Kar98 has about a 100 meter per second advantage when it comes to base bullet velocity, and that does carry over to our maximum velocity as well. Again, this maximum velocity is what we're going to be experiencing with the setups that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. And what this translates to is with that maximum velocity, the Swiss K31 is going to feel like hit scan out to about 65 meters, whereas with the Kar98, it's just a little bit longer. You'll feel that hit scan sort of range out to 70 meters. This also does mean there's technically a little bit less bullet drop with the Kar98, but again, if you're using these as aggressive snipers, which is kind of what they're designed for, you shouldn't have to be worrying about bullet drop all that much anyway. But moving on, the next thing I want to talk about here is optics, because this is quite important because there's a huge discrepancy between optics on Cold War snipers versus Modern Warfare snipers. And the main thing you'll notice is if you're using the default optic on the Swiss K31, this is going to zoom you in significantly farther than with the Kar98. You can see here, the Kar98 is zoomed out much more, which is generally a good thing for that aggressive sniping, so you have a wider field of view so you can see what's going on outside of your scope as well. And it also technically makes for a snappier adjustment to your aim, so you can track targets at closer ranges a little bit more effectively. And because of this, I wanted to see what it would look like compared to the 3x scope on the Swiss K31. And it turns out the 3x scope on the Swiss K31 gives us the exact same zoom level and field of view as the sniper scope on the Kar98. However, we don't have any sniper glint whatsoever with the 3x sight on Cold War snipers. They did recently add it for the 4x as well as the SUSAT multi-zoom, but not the 3x sight. So what this means is we can make a no glint version of the Swiss K31 with the same zoom level as the Kar98 with the sniper scope, which does have glint. So again, it's looking really good for the Swiss K31 so far. And with that in mind, I did want to share my recommended attachment combinations for these aggressive sniper rifles. Again, these are built specifically for aggressive sniping. But with the Swiss K31, I'd recommend using the GRU suppressor, the combat recon barrel for the maximum bullet velocity, the 5 milliwatt laser to help with aim down sight time as well as aiming stability, that Axial Arms 3x optic, I already explained why you should be using that, and then the Serpent Grip, which gives us the best boost to aim down sight time out of any of the rear grip attachments. This particular setup will give us a very solid aim down sight time at 417 milliseconds, which technically isn't quite as fast as the fastest possible aim down sight time on the Kar98. As we can see with this particular build of the Kar98, with the FTAC Sport Comb stock, which is the one that helps with our aim down sight time, we get an aim down sight time of just 367 milliseconds, which is extremely fast and very, very snappy. However, with this setup, you'll notice there's quite a bit of sway when aiming down sight, and this will also affect your quickscoping, because when you aim down sight, your point of aim can go anywhere within this path of your aiming stability. So if you're trying to get that really quick, snappy headshot on somebody in close quarters, this could absolutely throw you off. And you can see with my Swiss K31 build that I already showed you guys, the aiming stability is significantly better here. So even though you do get a better aim down sight time with the car, a lot of people will opt for the Precision Comb stock instead, which will increase our aim down sight time up to 434 milliseconds, which is now a little bit slower than my Swiss build. Now this does give us better aiming stability than my Swiss build now, but at least when it comes to aiming stability, they're much more comparable when you compare these two builds side by side. So in that sense, they're actually very similar when it comes to aim down sight time, and if anything, my Swiss build is slightly faster. Now, the next thing I wanted to take a look at is flinch, because this was specifically mentioned in the patch notes. The Swiss K31 got a significant improvement when it comes to flinch. And what I did here is I stood at the exact same distance, I got shot by the exact same gun, and then I just measured how much flinch you got with each of the guns. And with this, the green dot is the initial point of aim, and the red dot is where I flinch to. And you can see here, there is a little bit less flinch with the Kar98 as far as your point of aim goes. And that's mainly on the horizontal axis. I definitely got some horizontal flinch with the K31 that I didn't get with the Kar98. But I did want to point out as well, if we watch this in slow motion, I noticed there's a lot more visual deflection with the Kar98. Doesn't affect your actual point of aim as much, but visually speaking, it looks like more flinch to me. Still, overall, I would rather my camera flinch than my point of aim, and therefore the Kar98 is a little bit better when it comes to flinch. And with that, that's everything important that I wanted to compare between these two guns. And after comparing all these different areas, the Swiss K31 is absolutely a very solid contender against the Kar98 when it comes to aggressive sniping. Some of the biggest highlights are, first up, the fact that we don't have glint. This is massive. This is a very, very big upside to using the Swiss K31 with the 3x optic. And there's really not much of a trade-off here because you get the same zoom level as the sniper scope on the Kar98, which does give glint. Additionally, that infinite range is nice. The fact that you deal a bit more damage to the body is nice. The aiming stability is just fine with the Swiss, but it does technically get beat out by the Kar98 when it comes to aim down sight time potential if you're going for the absolute fastest aim down sight possible. And also bullet velocity by a little bit. It's not going to be super noticeable, but there is a slight advantage to the car here, and then flinch as well. The Kar98 will win in this area. So I don't necessarily think that the Swiss is going to completely replace the Kar98 and the Kar98 is now useless. However, I do think it's an incredible alternative, and I'd recommend giving it a shot if you haven't yet. If you're somebody that loves using the Kar98, try out this Swiss K31 setup that I've got built for you. And who knows, you might end up liking it even more than the Kar98. But with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the Swiss K31 post-patch? And more specifically, what do you think of the Swiss K31 in relation to the Kar98? Do you think it's a better aggressive sniper rifle now? Or would you still rather just stick with the Kar98? Just let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.